Welcome to IT305 Active Web AWICE3. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working on validators, and we're going to be working with two types of validators. Compare validators for drop-down boxes and required field validators for everything else. So let's get started. So we'll start with our intramural form.aspx in our ICE3 folder. We have default mode set to insert, so that means when we edit templates, we're going to go to the insert item template. And so next thing we're going to do is go to our toolbox under ASP.NET controls and validations, and we're going to take our compare validator. So the other one you'll use is required, but right now we're just going to use our compare validators. So let's go ahead and in our tag properties change our error message to the following, and then change the for color to red. So that changes the color of our error message. Next thing we're going to do is set the control to validate, never control to compare. So how do we know which control to validate? Well, if we click on the box, we can see they're named. In this case, this one's named drop down list 1. So let's click back on our validator again, and we're going to select drop down list 1 as the control to validate. We're going to then set our operator to not equal, and then our value to compare. What do we need to assign this as? We're going to type in select a cadet, and I'll show you where we get that from. So that comes down from our edit item menu in the drop down list, where we made the default value select a cadet. So what we're saying is if they leave the default value in there, they haven't actually clicked on the button. So we have 5 things: error message, for color, control to validate, operator, value to compare. Let's go ahead and do it again for our academic year. So we'll go up here and drag our compare validator. In this case, we put it over, and it's because where you drag the compare validator is where it's going to show up. So this error message is going to show up above academic year, while our previous error message is going to show up below cadet ID. So once again, we never pick control to compare. We'll take control to validate. Set our operator to not equal, and then finally value to compare. In this case, our default value is select a semester. So we'll go on and preview this form real quick. Hit F12 to preview. And when we preview it, what we see after we hit insert is that we have our error message. Note, select a cadet, select a semester. So if those things are equal, then the validator will activate, and it will not pass the data. Alright, so let's go ahead and do it one more time for sport roll. Set our error message, for color, then control to validate, operator, and value to compare. Alright, now we're going to go to our radio button list. And the radio button list is different because it doesn't have a default value, right? You need to click on something. So this is when we're going to use a required field validator instead of the compare. So we're going to drag the required field validator. Remember, where you drag it is where the error message will show up. And this one's simpler. It only has 3 steps. We'll start with the error message, then go on to the for color, and finally control to validate. Because remember, we don't have any value to compare here because there are no values. We're just making sure it's checked. Right, so 1, 2, 3 steps. Alright, let's go ahead and preview this and see if everything's working. So everything's working. Let's move on. This would normally conclude the ICE, but we'll just do one more step. What if you had a text box instead of a radio button list or a drop-down list? So let me create a text box here real quick. And it's going to be the same thing we do with a radio button list, right? Because we don't have a value to compare. There's no default value. So we're just going to check and make sure that it's filled. So we're going to use a required field validator. Drag that over here, drag it. Remember, the required field validator only has 3 steps. Fill out your error message, change the color of the error message using color, and then finally sending the control to validate. In this case, text box 1. Alright, once we do that, we'll preview. And then what do we see? We'll hit insert. If there's nothing in there, our validator should activate, and if we type something in there, then it doesn't show up. So everything's working. You now have all the tools you need to know to get started.